2003 GSX-r600 Steering dampener. As you can see, as you move through the stroke, it has air voids in it, makes it notchy. The customer actually dropped it in thinking that the steer bearings were bad, and when I had it up on the bench, it didn't feel right, so disconnected the steering dampener, and the steer bearings are perfect. So inside the dampener there's going to be air voids. According to the manual, these are non-serviceable, and they are a pain in the backside to service, but you can replace the oil quite easily. The oil that's coming out, as you can see, it doesn't look particularly bad. It's not foamed up, it's not all black and horrible like you get out of a pair of forks, because it doesn't do as much work as a pair of forks. The big problem here is that there just wasn't enough of it in there. Tiny amounts will leak out over time, and this probably hasn't been opened up since the bike was new. The main problem with bleeding these is that the only way to get all the air out is to submerge them. So it has maybe, I don't know, 100 mil, if that, 100 mils worth of oil in it, and you've got to use 10 times that amount to actually bleed them. And depending on what the oil inside the dampener is like, you might have to just throw the rest away. This is the second time I've used this lot of oil, because the last one I did, it was really clean inside. I was actually re-shimming an adjustable one. That's the bit where I realised I didn't have a block to tip it up on edge. So once you've got yourself organised, drained all the oil out, submerge your dampener completely. Make sure it's completely immersed. It needs to be, the port needs to be completely under the oil. And right here is where I realize that I'm a dumbass, and I either need more oil or I need the tray tipped up on more of an angle. I don't want to waste more oil, so I get another block, bring the tray up on a steeper angle to make sure it's completely submerged. Top right hand corner of the oil, you can see a small piece of sludge that's already come out of the steering dampener, just in bleeding. So this oil won't be being reused again, unfortunately. Every bubble that you see come out of this, at the beginning it's just as we're filling it up. As we get further into it, every bubble will feel like a notch in the dampener. It takes a while. Don't expect to do this in a couple of minutes. The whole job, just draining and cleaning and bleeding a dampener like this, will take you at least half an hour, maybe an hour, depending on how bad they are. ZX-10 ones are a complete pain because they've got a series of shims at one end that get air caught up in them, and just when you think you've finished, you'll tap it and you start all over again because there's a big lump of air in there. That's what I'm doing here, making sure that all the air is moved around past the piston. Make sure that there's no air voids in there. When I put it back in after doing this, you'll see what I mean. So if you watch somewhere here, there's one. Every single bubble will feel like a notch or a clunk in the dampener as you bleed it through. Anytime you see oil spurt, that's air being moved around inside it. So you've just got to keep going backwards and forwards, keep making sure that you get all the air out. This is where I'd usually make some kind of playing with my oily shaft joke, but I'm an adult, so I won't be doing that. And still going. In real time, this was about 25 minutes to get to this point. And that was just trying to get all the air out. You can still see very, very small bubbles every now and then. Pretty much got it now, though. when you're working through, you can actually see the air through the bleed port there if you're watching. And when you're bleeding it through, if it turns silver for a second, you know you've still got air in there. You need to blow it out. That's pretty much got it. It felt pretty smooth at that point, so nothing I needed to worry about. But it took about half an hour to get here. Then make sure that everything stays inside the oil while you put that retaining screw back in there. There's actually a pressed nylon washer that's seated in the steering dampener, and that's a non-removable, non-replaceable part. If you damage that or you pull it out or it falls out, then you end up having to make a new one and trying to make sure that it seals properly. You might have seen when it was being moved around that there is like a cross on either end of the main barrel there. You can unscrew these to actually get inside of them and disassemble them. They're full of O-rings. They're non-standard O-rings and really hard to get hold of. Suzuki don't sell them as a part. You have to go hunting through bearing supplies and things like that. Looking at the shaft as it comes out, you can see a very, very small amount of wear. It's actually really good for the age. And once it's all dried up and cleaned off, it's a nice smooth pull from start to finish. If you go back and look at the first couple of seconds, you'll notice it was a bit notchy. And that was it. We're all done.